this is I kind of want to open this up because there's a whole thing going on right now with child actors.
Everyone thought they knew why another child star vanished. A canceled show, some rumors, and then nothing. But then in March 2024, Lil JJ Lewis typed 4 words and blew up the narrative. Just Jordan got canceled. I ain't giving up no while at all. It was blunt, it was messy, and it cut directly against what the internet wanted to hear during the quiet on set storm. Those words didn't minimize anyone else's pain. They clarified his own story. He wasn't auditioning for sympathy. He was drawing a line. And that's where this begins. Not with a scandal tell-all, but with a refusal to play the part. To see how we really got here, we have to rewind to a kid from Little Rock who made rooms of adults fall apart laughing long before network executives ever learned his name. And what happened next would surprise everyone. October 31st, 1990, Little Rock, Arkansas. James Charles Lewis III arrives with a gift nobody could miss. Timing. Not the cute kid routine, timing. By grade school, he wasn't just cracking jokes, he was crafting bits tight enough to hold a room. Word got around, the stages got bigger. And at 11, he stepped onto BET's Coming to the Stage and did the unthinkable. He won. A child beating adults, live, without a safety net. That night didn't just crown a winner, it validated a lane only he could drive. From family shows to real clubs, he learned fast. Stand-up hardens you. It teaches you to read energy, pivot mid-sentence, and live or die by punchlines. By the time Hollywood called, he was already operating like a veteran, just in a smaller body. But gift meets machine sooner or later. When Nickelodeon tapped him for all that season 10 and the vital information bits, it wasn't charity. It was calculus. The network needed a shot of raw charisma, and he delivered it at scale. Every week, millions watched a teenager with the instincts of a headliner fold slick timing into kid-friendly sketches without losing edge. Behind the smiles, the process is a grinder. Long days, adult-run sets, constant notes, and the unspoken rule of kids' TV. Be marketable, be manageable. He could do the first with his eyes closed. The second? That's where friction lives. And then came the biggest risk a kid can take in Hollywood, putting your name on the line. Just Jordan premiered on January 7th, 2007. A teen from Arkansas moves to Los Angeles, finds his footing at his granddad's diner, and navigates life with humor sharper than his age should allow. It clicked because it felt lived in, not manufactured. Across 2 seasons and 29 episodes, the show held its own, closing its run on August 23, 2008. That's a legit milestone for a 17-year-old lead asked to carry a series. Audiences saw quick jokes and heartfelt beats. What they didn't see, the responsibility that lands on a kid's shoulders when payrolls and time slots hinge on your energy. He kept pace anyway. The question wasn't, is he talented? It was, can the business keep up with a teenager who doesn't act like a prop? Then, right when momentum mattered most, the industry slammed the brakes. Late 2007, the writers' strike hits. The 2007 to 2008 WGA shut down iced scripting across the schedule, scrambled calendars, and bled audience habits dry. Shows with deep loyalty limped through. Newer shows lost air under their wings. That is textbook. For a series still earning its weekly appointment status, an extended freeze can be fatal. When the dust settled, cancellation wasn't a headline, it was a verdict. And that's where most disappearing star myths begin. A show ends, and so does the attention. But attention isn't a career. Opportunity is. So why did the calls slow down and then stop? When a kid star turns 18, casting gets weird. Too old to be the kid, too young to be the adult. If you're independent, opinionated, or heaven forbid, creative, it's easy for gatekeepers to translate that as hard to manage. Not scandal, friction. That quiet kind that never makes headlines but shows up as missed calls, vanished meetings, and roles that went another way. What did he do? Something most won't. Step off the carousel. When rooms feel wrong, walking away can look like losing. But sometimes it's the only way to stop losing yourself. And that choice set up a different kind of comeback. One built on identity, not applause. He went home to Arkansas Baptist College and finished what many never start. a degree. Along the way, he joined Omega Sci-Fi, building a brotherhood and a wider sense of purpose outside of the Hollywood bubble. That's not quitting. That's stabilizing. And the mic never left. Stand-up spots, guest appearances, and a visible run with the freestyle circus of Wild 'N Out kept the engine warm. If you know that stage, you know it's ruthless. No script to hide behind, only reflex. That's where you spot the pros who sharpen off camera. He wasn't gone. He was evolving. Then 2024 arrived, and the internet pointed a spotlight right back at kids' TV. Quiet on set hit like a siren. Former child actors spoke out. Receipts surfaced. A generation re-examined what it survived. Even Dan Schneider issued public explanations, messy, imperfect, but undeniably a response to a cultural reckoning. The conversation was loud, raw, and overdue. Amid the storm, timelines started tagging JJ. The pressure was simple. Pick a side, declare trauma, or risk looking cold. But lived experience is personal, not communal property. And so he posted the now infamous line, "Just Jordan got canceled. I ain't giving up no lol." Crude? Sure. Clear? Absolutely. He didn't claim pain he didn't have. He refused to let internet demand script his memory, and reactions split. Some praised honesty, others hated the tone. But beneath the phrasing was a bigger thesis. Not every career stall is a scandal. Sometimes it's a system punishing people who won't be molded. Which brings us to what those 4 words actually signaled. The post wasn't a joke, it was jurisdiction. It said, "My story belongs to me." In an industry that runs on control, that stance is expensive. When you don't submit to the role they wrote for you, grateful, compliant, easily directed, the room gets cold. Careers don't always end in explosions. Sometimes they die by 1,000 unreturned emails. But let's be honest, that same refusal is why the art worked in the first place. The same independence that made a 10-year-old command a crowd is the same independence that refuses to fake a narrative 20 years later. It cost him. It also kept him human. And that's the part we usually miss when we measure disappearance by screen time alone. Here's the trap. Audiences fall in love with a kid version of you, and the industry wants that forever. The minute your voice drops or your face changes, the rooms get confused. Too grown for the sweet kid, not old enough for the leading man. Roles shrink, not because you got worse, but because the box got tighter. That mismatch kills momentum faster than any headline. But typecasting isn't the only silent killer. Money is too. Behind every kid show is a spreadsheet. When a young lead drives ratings, the machine runs. When ratings wobble or a strike chokes production, spending contracts. Marketing budgets dry up, development slates freeze, and guess who becomes optional first? The youngest names. That's how a star can carry a season, then get told there's nothing appropriate 6 months later. And when the business cools off, narrative myths rush in to explain it. Silence is a vacuum, and the internet hates vacuums. So it invents. He fell off. He got blackballed. He did something wild. The reality is often boring and brutal. Timing, budgets, and gatekeepers who only know one version of you. When the myth gets louder than the truth, you either chase it or you ignore it and rebuild. He chose the second path. That's why going back to class wasn't a step down. It was a step away. Most child stars cling to proximity. Stay in LA, stay hot, stay visible. But visibility isn't stability. College flips the priorities. Deadlines that aren't ratings, friends that aren't agents, goals that aren't measured in overnight views. To the outside world, that looks like disappearing. Inside, it's oxygen, and oxygen is what fuels a second act. And while the diploma was cooking, the mic never left. Clubs don't care about your IMDb page. They care about laughs tonight. That's why stand-up keeps performers honest. It's reps, pressure, and instant feedback. Those sets and the unscripted chaos of improv TV spots kept him sharp when the cameras weren't calling. No narrative, just craft. So when 2024 demanded a statement, he didn't chase a storyline. He owned his own. Those 4 words weren't about shock value. They were about jurisdiction over his story. The internet wanted a prefab arc. Victim, villain, or vanished. He rejected all 3. And in doing that, he exposed something bigger. The machine doesn't need to destroy every kid to maintain control. It just needs enough cautionary tales to keep the rest quiet. He refused to play along. And that's why the question isn't, where did he go? It's, what does success look like when you refuse to be managed? The 2007 to 2008 Writers Guild of America strike didn't just stop scripts, it froze futures. For adults, it was a labor standoff. For young actors like Lil JJ, it was a career extinction event in slow motion. Picture this: 100 days of halted production, hundreds of shows waiting on scripts that never came, studio lots empty, call sheets void, cameras collecting dust. Networks like Nickelodeon scrambled to fill airtime with reruns and cheap reality experiments while entire casts sat idle. For a veteran, a pause like that is inconvenient. For a young star just breaking through, it's catastrophic. Momentum is everything in Hollywood. Take 3 months off, and the audience moves on. And when production finally resumed, executives weren't looking to revive teen comedies. They were looking for new blood and lower budgets. The strike became the silent assassin of dozens of promising shows, including Just Jordan. Ratings fell not because fans stopped caring, but because entire generations of kids discovered other platforms, other distractions. The Just Jordan audience aged up, and by the time the network came back to life, so had JJ. What's worse, nobody warned him that once your show stops airing, you stop existing in the business's memory. There are no loyalty points in television. No matter how talented you are, Hollywood moves on the second you're out of frame. And that harsh reality pushed JJ towards something most stars never get: a full reset. Most people only see 2 options for child stars: fade into obscurity or crash spectacularly. But Lil JJ carved a third lane: reconstruction. He didn't chase gossip blogs or beg for cameos. He rebuilt privately, studied communications, learned business, created space to breathe again. And while Hollywood expected him to crumble without its approval, he learned how to perform without permission. That's the part almost no one talks about. True longevity in entertainment doesn't come from being everyone's favorite. It comes from understanding the machine so well that you no longer need it to validate you. When JJ returned to stand-up and later stepped onto stages like Wild 'N Out, he wasn't coming back as a nostalgic act. He was coming back with agency. Every joke, every moment, every camera flash was on his terms. And that's the secret other former child stars quietly envy. The ones who burned out early were taught to chase attention. The ones who survived learned to control their narrative. JJ's story became a quiet roadmap. Detach when they try to define you. Invest in real-world skills while the spotlight cools. Return only when you can dictate the terms. Hollywood never apologized for erasing him. It never will. But it also couldn't stop him. Because survival, especially in that business, isn't about staying visible. It's about staying intact. He might not headline blockbuster movies or live in every algorithm, but his voice, his wit, and his defiance still echo in every performer who refuses to bow to the system. And maybe that's the most powerful legacy of all. If you only watch headliners, you miss the people who choose sanity over spotlight. The arc isn't Wonder Kid, vanished star. It's early mastery, corporate headwinds, self-preservation, selective re-entry. Along the way, he grabbed a diploma, found brotherhood, kept his joke muscle strong, and when the web demanded a confession, said exactly what he meant, not what would trend. So here's the real question. How many missing child stars aren't missing at all? They just opted out of a system that rewards compliance over talent? Drop your take below. And if you were watching back in 2007, tell me which Just Jordan moment still lives rent-free in your head. Because if this story proves anything, it's that great timing never actually disappears. It just chooses when to step back to the mic.